everyone. Okay. Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Okay. And welcome. Hello, everyone. I think I know where the problem is. There we go. Good evening. Welcome to Conversation with the Love Crusader. It's your Sunday tonic, and we are live again today. If you're coming across the platform for the first time, it's called Conversation with the Love Crusader. It's a platform where we talk about love, we talk about life, we talk about relationships, and we try to have fun while we do so. So we do some serious talk, but we have fun while doing them. And it's one of our last edition for the year, actually. The next one will be the Christmas edition, which will be next Sunday. I can't believe the year is gone already. Well, thank God for life. Thank God we're all here. Thank God you still have your family. Thank God you still have your spouse. You still have your wife. You still have your whatever. Is your love life still going on? Remember, we started January talking about what can I do differently. Did you do anything differently this year? I'd like to hear back from you. Our WhatsApp number is on our Facebook page. You can connect with us on Facebook. You can connect with us on YouTube, on my LinkedIn profile. It's the Love Crusader all the way. All right. I was just trying to welcome Emmanuel, and then he disappeared from the screen. I'm sure you all have missed Emmanuel. Emmanuel has not been with us for a while now, so I'm super excited that he could make it today. Welcome, Emmanuel.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello,
Yeah,
viewers.
that voice. Let me
Nice to
speak
be
on behalf
back.
of all of my fans. We missed Dr. Emmanuel's voice, so we're happy he's here today. Welcome, welcome,
Thank you.
welcome.
Thank you
All
for the
right.
warm welcome.
You're welcome. So we started a series this month of December talking about love builders, and we are on the last part of it. Today we're talking about growth and change. Growth and change. I know they say change is the most constant thing in life. What has it got to do with relationships, Emmanuel?
Okay, so it's a very interesting topic because it's a combination of one word growth and the other word change. A lot of people embrace growth. Most people are terrified by change, especially when it is not the kind of change they're expecting. But when it comes to relationship, because we as humans, we're always growing, right? We are getting older, we're accumulating life experiences, we are hopefully getting wiser. And with that change in who we are, it impacts what we bring to any relationship that we have. It impacts how we interpret our experiences and how we interpret the experiences of others. It impacts empathy, it impacts love, it impacts connection, it impacts communication. So there's a wide range of relationship aspects that are certainly affected by growth and change. And the hope is that we are changing positively. And by reason of changing positively, we're bringing, a better contribution to our relationships.
Okay, I like that you have said the one that is universally known. I think the whole world knows that people don't like change. Many don't like change. And they would even go as far as resisting change. So let's start from that point. Or should we start first from growth? Is growth actually necessary in a relationship?
So the universal answer or the general answer would be yes. However, each relationship is unique in its makeup, and growth can only be a yes answer if both parties are aligned with growth, right? If both parties understand what growth means for them, and if both of them embrace what they need to do to grow. Otherwise, for some relationship, maintaining the status quo is their what they want and how they want it, and they are happy and comfortable doing it that way. Generally in life, we should be growing. That's the general answer, but when it comes to each individual relationship, you would find that there are unique perspectives.
Mm, okay. I like that. I like that you say generally in life we should be growing. Can someone be growing in life and it doesn't affect your relationship? For example, you're growing professionally, for example, doesn't it somehow have a way that it affects, influence your relationship? So can, when you say the dynamics, maybe a couple in themselves don't want to grow or they've agreed not to grow. I don't know how that works anyways. But is it really, are they being truthful when you say, well, we don't have to grow in the relationship, but growth is happening anyways? Because I mean, in life we grow.
So, when I first touched on definition, I talked about how we are always accumulating experiences and information and all that good stuff. So, by
Mm,
default, we are all, if we want to use the word growth to represent that change, then we are all growing one way or another. But we also know that as humans, we have the capacity to compartmentalize,
mm,
right? There are people who are, let me use an example that might be extreme, but you might find that there are people who are very, very open-minded when it comes to their workplace, when it
mm,
comes to their profession.
mm,
But they're not open-minded when it comes to their relationship. They are very traditional in their way of thinking. So
mhm,
imagine if you have, for example, a husband and a wife that are very, very traditional in their way of thinking about
mm,
maybe themselves, about the relationship, about their roles, about life within the
mm,
context of their marriage.
mm,
Those two people can still be very highly functional individuals in their careers and be very open-minded when it comes to their careers or when it comes to other things, to their spirituality or their responsibilities with, in terms of spirituality and stuff like that. But within the relationship, they're very happy being uber traditional in their mindset. And because, again, both of them are functioning that way, they may see no need for change because at the end of the day, right, two work together when they agree. Now, however, if one person is accumulating information, and let's say, for example, the information they're accumulating outside of the marriage, they want to translate that information to the marriage or
mm,
to their relationship.
mm,
Now, they have to ensure that the other person is on the same page. And if they're not,
mm,
it may take time to convince, to get to the point where we are both on the same page and we can grow together in maybe that particular aspect of the relationship. For example, sex is an aspect of the relationship where two people may not necessarily be very knowledgeable. One person may pursue knowledge, or may, by reason of their kind of job or what they do, accumulate a certain kind of knowledge that they now say, okay, you know what, I learned this. How about we translate it to us? And it's a bit of a process to get the other person to come to where they now are in terms of their knowledge. However, if they are both on the same paradigm, then they can be very happy and fully functional without, necessarily pursuing change.
hmm. Truthfully, I never thought of it that way. So, two people can actually decide to be happy, without changing nothing and just remain how they've been, despite that growth is happening outside of their relationship, but the growth may not transfer into the relationship. Hmm. I
It
learned
is
one
it is a
today.
poss it is a possibility where humans, we compartmentalize a lot, right? And sometimes depending on what we are exposed to, that's another thing you need to put into consideration. What are you exposed to? Because we're
Mm,
exposed to things by reason of our will, and sometimes even against our will, we're exposed to things. Life
mm,
happens.
mm,
And by reason of that, we accumulate information, we make decisions and all this stuff. But if people are in a settled, I've known some couples in the past, and it might tend to be the older couples that have a settled way of doing things or a settled way of approaching things and don't feel the need to, want to change it. Why? We are fully functional. We are both happy. You're predictable. I am predictable. I know what to expect. You know what to expect. We're not shaking anything up, so to say.
But doesn't
Um,
that take
and
away the excitement in a relationship? If we just continue to do things the way we've always done it, you're comfortable, I'm comfortable. I know change can be uncomfortable, but if we just continue the way we've always done things, and we don't want to shake the table, we don't want to, you get what I mean? Doesn't that become a boring life?
that's a great question. So again, that question would depend on who you're asking that question. What one person defines as boring might be exciting to another person, right? So I'm trying to, just give a balanced response. I understand that, oftentimes we as humans, we're always looking out for what is the next thing. We have that
Exactly.
desire. What's the next thing? What's the next
Exactly. And
exciting
I'm
thing?
that
What's the
kind of
next
person.
step?
Like, what's the next thing? What's happening next? Like,
Right.
I don't know. So maybe if they had diagnosed or checked me earlier, they would have said, "Oh, this one has ADHD." I'm kind of always on the move. What next? What next? So I'm just,
Right.
I can't wrap my head around a relationship where we are the way we have been and we continue to remain the way we've been. For me, I feel like, well, anyways,
The,
let's
the,
let's
the
ask
thing
let's
though, the
ask the
thing though
viewers.
is if we have been applying, so imagine a couple, right, that have been applying a lot of the things we've been discussing on this platform for the last couple years.
Mm-hmm,
They may have gotten to a point where they've accumulated so much knowledge, they have such a beautiful, free flowing, um, well rounded, united relationship that is so
mm,
balanced to
mm,
where to an outsider it may seem as okay, they've just settled for just everyday normal life, but to them they've actually been able to get to that point where it's beautiful and it's flowing smoothly.
mm.
If that is achieved, some people have gotten to that point where they so understand each other that their relationship flows smoothly. That's a great place to be, right? It may seem a bit boring because let's shake the table, but if we're just shaking the table for the sake of shaking the table, then we may be introducing chaos into a situation that is already peaceful.
So if it's working, why change it?
Well, some people would argue
Should
if it's
that be the
working, well,
attitude?
change it.
Should that be the attitude? If it is working, why change it?
If it is working, can we improve it? Should be the attitude. Ideally. Now, again, we're talking of ideals, but then if you come to each person's unique situation, you may find that if it is working, why disrupt it might be the mindset that a couple. It's important that we're using the word couple because oftentimes change is introduced when one person feels, okay, this needs to change. And even if the other person feels this is okay as is, we now have a bit of a struggle that brings us to a place of compromise, right? Still coming to a place of balance again. And hopefully, that balance or compromise is positive in terms of moving the relationship up to something better. But there are oftentimes that compromise means bring the relationship down to something less better, right? So if both people are happy and they're fully functional, they may consider change to be disruptive more than to be a tool for improvement. It's just depending on how how those two people go about it.
Okay. This Emmanuel's philosophy today. I agree with it. I'm not disagreeing with it. It's just for me, it's never crossed my mind that, I mean, I understand the situation of if it's working, why disrupt it? If it's not broken, why fix it? But I just think that generally with life, growth is uh, normal. And I mean, I got married quite young, quite early in life. And there are a lot of things about the way I used to think. I used to, my ideologies, my beliefs, my, you know, what mattered to me, what I would maybe kill for when I was 22. It's not the same now. So
Right.
whether I like it or not, by reason of the fact that I have aged, I have already grown in some aspects of life.
True.
And if someone expects me to still behave the way I was behaving at that time, then you see there's going to be a mismatch. And so I
That's
think this is where some people, where couples now get the challenge, where maybe one person has now grown and the other person is still at the level where the relationship just started. Then, you know, there's for example, in communication,
right.
you begin to find a situation where when one is saying A, the other is actually thinking Z, if you get what I mean. So
Right.
there's no longer going to be effective communication. And before you know it, resentment, lots of frustration, complain of, you're not getting me, you don't understand me, you don't know where I'm going. In fact, even goals in life change.
Right.
And it's two ways. The person who is growing begins to feel that sense of frustration because their partner is not growing. The person who has not grown is also feeling frustrated because their partner is changing on them, in quotes. This is not you. This is not the you I married. How do we help these people? So both ways. Let's try to help both ways.
Wow. That is a very long and complicated question, Mama C. Um,
Break it down as you can. Break
I
it down
wish
as
I
you
could just give you one quick answer to that, but
can.
um, so your example is actually a great one when we use age as an example of accumulated experiences that make us, whether we want to or not, we tend to change. There's a difference between a couple without kids and a couple with kids. There's a difference between a couple with little kids, a couple with grown-up teenagers. There's a difference between teenagers and adults, right? So we would always face situations that impact us as people, but in terms of the connection between one person and the other and how that connection is built over time, even if there are external factors, it is possible for two people to continue to maintain harmony as they grow by reason of, again, using all these many things we've talked about on this platform as an example. However, dealing with a situation where one person or both parties are actually changing, they're just changing in different directions. It's not always the case
That's
that
another
one changes, the
situation.
other
Yeah,
remains the
yeah,
same.
yeah.
We grow apart, use this
Hmm.
kind of words to describe their scenario.
Exactly.
Then change becomes, to some onlookers, oh, yeah, something we should avoid because, see, it's creating division, it's creating problems in the relationship. But when change and growth, they are not handled properly, or we don't
Mm,
go about executing growth and change the right way, when we don't
mm,
respond to change the right way, it often leads to the frustration that you've talked about. Whether
mm,
it's a case of we now have different visions for how our life should be, how our relationship should be, where we should be by now, how we should be doing things by now, all those kind of things playing to it, and how that feeling or desire is communicated, how that is understood, and then how both parties implement, a strategy for what is next. All these tend to affect the health of the relationship going forward. Change is good. And as we go through life, it is important that we take all these tools. For example, communication. You cannot just go on your own tangent and say, this is now what I believe. And I don't care how it impacts my spouse. I'm growing.
Mm,
It's
mm,
positive. I'm moving forward. I have goals. I'm doing this and doing that. And then you don't communicate that effectively. There is no understanding in terms of how this, your wonderful new self, is impacting the balance of the relationship.
mm.
And at the same time, you cannot insist it must be the way it's always been, world without end. Look, everything about life has changed. And if we meet a situation that calls for us to modify how we do what we do, if we meet a situation that challenges our intrinsic core values, we should be bold and courageous enough to face ourselves in the mirror and ask the hard questions. Why do I do this? Or why do I believe this thing should be done this way? Or it should be this way? To challenge yourself fundamentally. And then when you look deep down inside, you can now begin to find, okay, I think I can actually make some changes here, or I think I can actually do things better. I think we can actually be better. But there is usually a bit of time between, let me use Christian words, between revelation and then execution. And that time is called understanding. And
Mm.
when you've been able to establish on because one person receives a revelation about how things can be better, but there needs to be understanding between both before we can now execute that revelation. So,
So it's not enough. I totally agree with you, and I hear what you're saying. I think that's a very good advice for the person who is growing. It's not enough to say, "Oh, I have learned this new thing. We have to implement it, and it has to happen now." And if your partner is not on board with it immediately, then it becomes a challenge. It becomes a case of, why are they not changing? Why can't they see what I'm seeing? And that is the truth. They can't see what you're seeing sometimes, because like you
hmm,
said, you call it a revelation. Yeah. There are a lot of words that can be used to describe it. The aha moment, the moment you get
right.
that, oh, this is a better way of doing things. Oh,
Light
this can
bulb.
be done. The light bulb moment. Thank you. That's another word I was looking for. So you got that light bulb moment. Your partner was not there, right? So you have to understandably, give this person time to also come to that level, come to that moment where they see what you see, and they're able to now meet up, so to speak, or come to the place where you are. The frustration further is, and that I'm going to bring back to you as a question: how long should this understanding be? Because at what point do we say, okay, now this person is just not willing to adapt? Because with changes come adaptation. Changes in the way we talk, communication, the way we support ourselves in our careers, in our love life, in the bedroom, in a lot of ways, we evolve as a people. I mean, one simple example: I got married. I never used to wear makeup. I never used to wear the one they call trousers, pants, because of where I was, the way I was brought up. But my husband liked these things. In fact, while we were still dating, my husband bought my first jeans and already had it in his house waiting for me. Because this is what he liked. He was the first person to tell me, look, Mary Kay is what they are using. I never knew the name of that makeup. My husband got the name, brought it, and said, Mary Kay. Mary Kay is what he will be using. And later I became a distributor for Mary Kay, long story short. But I could have as well, I could have said, look, no, 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 this is not how I was brought up. This is not what my father said. This is not what my mother said. Do you get what I mean? This is not what I was told.
Right.
In fact, I was told it's a sin and I shouldn't wear
Right.
it.
Right.
And then maybe he would have given me 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. That's why I'm asking, how long should you? I mean, that's just, maybe someone will say, well, that's a small thing. It's just appearance. But you can also remember that for a man, appearance is strong, is important. Let's keep it aside and now think about it. What are the things that, oh, your spouse is saying, we can change this? This is how I like this. Whether man or woman, they're saying to you, we can do this in a better way like this. But you are still doing it the way you've always done it. Then how long can this person understand for? Because we've just said, yes, they should be understanding. They should know that maybe their partner have not reached the level where they are, and so give them the grace to get to where they are going. So the question now is, how long should that be for?
I want to give an answer that may not be very popular.
Tell me.
However, I feel convinced that it is true. I think if you love somebody, you wait for how long, however long it takes, right? There's a
Mm,
famous saying that love endures all things. Sometimes your love needs to endure the process from A
mm,
to B.
mm.
And it's not a popular or easy thing to say. I won't lie about that. Even I, as a person, struggle with situations where where I'm trying to communicate. I feel strongly about this, and I feel like I am explaining it with facts and figures and you know
And all the
everything
data
that
to
should
support your research.
with facts, figures, data, and everything to just make it unarguable. And
Yeah.
my spouse she's not just there yet, or she feels completely different. So what? Am I going to force my feelings or my thought about that particular subject matter down her throat? And it must be, or else let's have conflict. Let everywhere be chaotic. No, sometimes, like you established, we just need to endure. It does take time. The other thing that I want to point that I think is also helpful is while you're waiting, it is important to support baby steps. Change
Mm,
doesn't come easily to a lot of us, especially when it is intrinsic change. It's easy to change your job. You move from one job to the next. It doesn't really change who you are as a person, right? It's easy to maybe change a church. You go from this church to the other. It may not necessarily change, but the kind of change that relationships often demand or ask for are
mm,
intrinsic change, a change in
mm,
who we are, in how we do
mm,
things, in what we believe, in how we see life. Those don't change easily. However, we can be supportive of baby steps, right? You're trying to get your husband, say for example, you're a couple and you're in diaspora, you're not in Nigeria. And of course, because you're in diaspora, you don't have house help. And because you don't have house help, you're running into a situation where both husband and wife are working.
mm,
And, you guys are doing 9 to 5 or whatever the time is, but you still have domestic responsibilities. And the way the marriage started in Nigeria, as a man, you don't do anything domestic. You just go to
mm,
work, you
mm,
come back home, you cross your leg, the house help brings dinner, you eat dinner, and you go for the next day. But there's no house help now. And you guys have kids. And there's need, this is change, and we need to grow or adapt to be able to balance out the situation. So when you communicate, say the woman is communicating with me, I need you to help me, please. It's difficult for me to also go through my job like you and be the only one, responsible for everything going on in the home.
mm,
If in that situation the
mhm,
man decides to vacuum the house, it's
mhm,
such a small thing, right, to you
mhm,
because you're doing all this big stuff.
mm.
Praise baby steps because it's a way of encouraging, and this is both ways. I'm just using an example, this as an
Fantastic
example,
example. Go on. I love it.
right? So support baby steps. That's a baby step. It
Mm,
starts with that. If the next time he helps to just give the kids a bath before they go to bed, ooh,
mm,
sing his praise. Great
mm,
job. Like you
mm,
talked about makeup. I'm pretty sure the first time you put a lipstick, even if you didn't put foundation and every other thing, probably your husband was like, wow, you look amazing. He's praising baby steps because we all don't intrinsically change just like that,
mm,
and we're all always not on the same page. However, we need to communicate our need and the situation effectively, and we need to make room for the other person to change, however gradual it may seem, and encourage that. Praise baby steps is one way to get people to grow, or positive affirmation is really strong when it comes to us humans. It helps us get, feel like, okay, this makes you happy. It makes you react this way. All right. Let's do more of that, because I love that positive, reaction that I get from doing this. Right.
Fantastic. I took off a comment. I want to bring it back. Just give me a minute. Barrister Nkem says it's the responsibility of the visionaire to sell his vision to the other. You must commit to the frustration and whatever it takes to sell your vision to your husband or wife. You must wait and guide that change. Oh my God, isn't that asking for too much of one person, please?
When you are in the situation, this is a comment you don't even want to hear.
You don't want to hear. I'm sure someone is saying, come on, woman.
Absolutely, you don't want to hear that comment.
But however, when we say marriage is work, this is the type of work we are referring to. And I keep saying marriage because if you're in a relationship with someone you're not married to, there's no permanence in that relationship. Let me break the table. All of you who are living together, partner, even if you like be partner for 10, 20, 50 years with someone, it doesn't give it the permanency that marriage does. Okay? So that's why we keep saying marriage. In a relationship, and I guess this is why many people move from one partner to the other. Because what you try to change in one, yes, you might find that in another, but there might be something else in that new person that you also need to change. So it's better for us to work together, to change ourselves, to grow ourselves, to evolve together, to learn together, and patiently wait for, the other person to get to where we are, to understand us, And I think this is key. One very key thing you said there, which I totally agree with, is to communicate the need to change. Now, so many people are in their relationships, they don't talk. You're not even saying what you want. So your partner does not even know that this is your challenge, or this is how, or maybe the way you even say it. That's another thing. The way it's communicated, I like the praise baby step. I like it. Somebody's going to beat me here today. Somebody say, I have a problem with how people have owned the word partner in Africa. We have marriage, not partnership. I know, but this is a global platform, and I know that there are people watching from all parts of the world, which is why we try to speak the language they will understand. It's not because I support people. I don't support people living together or married. I'm old school when it comes to that. Nothing has changed that. I still believe that if you love someone, you can do right by them by marrying them. There's no need to keep them in the house and say, oh, we're partners, we're live-in partners, we're living together, we're experimenting. Nothing is going to change. But when you marry, there's safety, there is, the permanency of it. Like I said, there is the feeling of I'm worth it. You went all out to marry me, I'm worth it. Okay, let's not go to that topic because that's not the topic for today. So we're talking about how you communicate this change, which is really, really important, and praising the small steps. And I think, Emmanuel, the example you gave is a very, very fantastic one, which a lot of people struggle with when they go and live abroad, especially Africans. African men, someone says culture shock. It's affecting most relationships when couples relocate to this other part of the world. Changing the mindset is not an easy job, honestly. It takes a lot of compromise and dedication. Hence, most marriage break up when couples relocate to diaspora. Fantastic. My matron Tando, I always call her my matron. Thank you for that comment. That's a very, very valid point, and it's the truth. You hear some people even tell you, oh, don't go abroad with your wife. Don't take your partner abroad, because when you get there, she's going to grow wings. Oh, she expects you now to wash dishes. She expects you to clean the house. Because we all know that in Africa it's a patriarchal society. And I know a couple that the husband has said they will never live abroad because of that. So to some people, you might be sounding like a small thing, but it's a big deal to some people that that
Right.
happens. However, I think it's also because when you come to a place like this, job schedules change. And I'll give a very good example myself. I used to work a 9 to 5 job back home, and I had my weekends free. So it meant that, in fact, when I close at 5 p.m. in the evening, I'm passing through my house. There's a small mini market. I'm able to just buy some veggies, and then I'm making dinner. Table is set. Most times my husband will come home much later than me. I close early. I get home before him. That's if he's not closing from work. I'm going to church before he comes. So food is set. He comes home. He eats. That's usually our setup and the setting. We came here and then we started running shifts. So sometimes I go on a night shift and then he's at home, or maybe he's worked the day, he goes on a night shift and I'm at home, or I'm not even at home, or we're both on a night shift. We go and do 12, 10 hours night shift, then we come back home. Then both of us expect to do what? To sleep. At that point, you're not expecting me to be looking for market vegetable dinner. Do you get what I'm trying to say? So we all have to adjust. And I think the key is the willingness to adapt.
I was also going to make a comment while you were describing your experience that I think what will also be very helpful would be re-educating ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And
Education is
education,
part of
of
growth.
course.
Go on. Until we grow.
Education, of course, one way to get educated is to be exposed to stuff for a prolonged period of time and to figure it out. The
Mm,
other way is for somebody to tell you, right? For somebody to express the experience to you and teach you that this is what works.
mm,
All of us learned what works with maybe our tradition or our mindset as we grew. Our parents told us what was right and wrong, and we developed a mindset. We were educated. So when you speaking to those people that are in diaspora, when you are about to relocate, it will be smart of you to find a friend, a relative, somebody that you know, wow, their relationship seemed to be good, and
mm,
ask questions. How are you guys doing it? How
mm-hmm,
are you able to balance this? What were the changes you experienced? And when people start telling you their experiences, how they balance work life and family and spirituality and all their responsibilities,
mm,
it gives you a better sense of, all right, this is what I can expect. It reduces that shock, right? You kind of re-educate yourself so that when you're in this diaspora, you have a different mindset. But I was going to use another example of or make a comment that there are situations that we have to say are difficult to adapt to. There are exceptions to every rule. For example, abuse is a situation that we're not in this place advocating for you to just stay in there and adapt to being abused, right? Especially depending on the kind of abuse. But generally speaking, being in an abusive relationship is not something we're encouraging you to just endure. Right? With that, we're encouraging you to
and wait
seek
for it
help.
to change. That's not a situation to wait for
Yes,
change.
exactly. Right. Is that it's a situation that you actively need to seek help outside of just you and your spouse. All
Exactly.
right, let's just add that one there. And then there are other situations that I have known some people that are very, very difficult. For example, you're committed to a relationship, but your spouse just gets up and leaves, whether male or female, and leaves, and you don't know their whereabouts, you don't know where they are, you don't know what they're doing, they're not home. You're married, but you're almost like you're still single. Again, there are difficult situations like this that is it's hard to just tell somebody just stay there, just endure, and then hope for the better. So it still boils down to individual situations, and when you're uncertain, seek guidance. Is the re-education we're talking about? Seek guidance. Speak with a counselor. Speak with your let's say use the word pastors or people who give counsel to help you decide what your next steps would be in that relationship. And we're just touching some extremes there.
Yes, fantastic. Thank you for saying that. I think that any whatever be the extreme case that you need to change and your partner is not seeing it with you, you can actually find a third party. Because sometimes a third party can maybe explain it better. I don't want to use the word explain it better, but break it down and paint the picture of neutrality. So you're not seeing it as this person just wants me to change, or this man is trying to make me feel that I'm not enough. And I think that's another point I want us to deal with. So this
Mhm.
man is coming to you, and I'm going to use man because I think the people who have vented these frustrations to me are mostly men. They are coming to the woman and they are saying, I think you need to change in this way or in that way. And rather than see the change, they feel like, oh, you think I'm not enough. You're saying, they flip it. You are trying to say I'm not enough. Oh, I should have been better this way or better that way. Rather than see that way, Dr. Nkem has already said, additionally, we're adults. If your spouse is sharing a vision or an idea that you know is positive, you must show commitment to align with it. Especially if the marriage means it's important to you, if the relationship is important to you. For me, I think one of the ways to show that your relationship means a lot to you, show that commitment to change, the willingness to adapt to change. So how would one deal with a situation where this person is now making you feel like, oh, you're saying I'm not enough, I can you could have done better. But that's not what you're
Mm.
trying to portray. You are trying to say, why don't we do these things better? Why don't we do it this way? Why don't we go it this way? Why don't we learn this way? And I like one example you use. Don't forget the question I've asked you, because I might digress a bit. That fantastic example you've used of going to talk to someone else. In some marriages, they don't have any mentor. There's nobody that they talk to. There's nobody they're learning from. And we are social beings. We should be learning from ourselves. You see some men, they don't want to interact with other men. How do you even know how they are successfully doing it? Some women too don't want to interact with other women, especially women like me who will tell them the truth. Okay, okay. Maybe they want the one who will tell them and kick that man out, throw him out, stuff like that, you know. But the thing here is, how do we, I'm coming back to, how do we build that willingness to change, willingness to adapt? Because if your partner is saying something over and over and over again, even if you don't feel it's a problem, there should be a point of realization where you now come to the level of, okay, even if this thing doesn't mean anything to me, it seems like it's important to my partner that I behave this way or that I change this way. So what can I do to change? How do we get to that level of that willingness to adapt, to
Fan-
change?
Fantastic question. Wow. That's a beautiful question. Um, and it's quite interesting to hear that maybe you've gotten a feedback more from men than
Yes.
women with respect to this, but that's really
Mm-hmm.
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
However, I think the reason why there is resistance to change in relationship, this is my personal opinion on
Your
what
two
I think is the
cents. Go
most,
on.
yes, my 2 cents on what I think is the most common denominator is the emotional component of relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the emotional component is triggered by many things. It's triggered by what is said, it's triggered by how it is said, how the communication is done. It is triggered by all the other factors that surround, the non-verbal communication that goes on. It's triggered by many things.
Mm.
And if you're in a situation where you feel like your spouse or partner is more accepting of suggestions coming from a third party. For example, you've explained to your partner, we need to do this thing this way, and I think you should do this way because it's
Mm.
going to give a much better, this makes sense logically to get that outcome. And the person looks at you and decides, no, I think it should be the other way, and the person is just doing it for the sake of being on the other side, right?
Mm.
Because unfortunately, that might reflect that the person, is not there emotionally. and the person is responding to their emotions, using this situation to respond to their emotion. Because if the person is receptive to the same advice from a third party, then the reason they are probably receptive is because there's no emotional connection with that third party. So
Mm,
it's easier to be
mm,
objective
mm,
because we don't have any, no emotional whatever you have to fill in that space with.
mm.
And it might be an indication that maybe you need to have a deeper conversation about, okay, what's going on? We should have a certain level of trust and love
Mm,
to where if I am giving you a suggestion about something, you should trust me enough to know I have your best at heart. And that
exactly.
should motivate you to want to do better. Let me use the word better. And the same thing should apply to me. If somebody's giving me, say my spouse is giving me an advice and I'm just resisting for the sake of resisting, I know in my heart I'm just resisting for the sake of I don't want to talk to you, I don't want to hear anything you have to say. If you like the saying the most wonderful thing, I'm not interested. That's
Mm,
the emotional part, and we are often there. So we need to actually accept that that's going on and maybe hold off that conversation for a later time where we perhaps don't have emotional stuff happening that would hinder that good from being received. That's what I have found from communicating with couples all over to be the most common reasons. Not because the person saying stuff outside has something on their head that just makes it all of a sudden you're listening. And I know oftentimes within the relationship, especially for men, it feels like a disrespect, right? It comes across to men as a disrespect, a
mm,
dishonor, in fact,
mm,
if
mm.
your husband counsels you about something they think is good or right for you or for the relationship or for the home, and you treat it like crap, you don't want to hear it, to trash it. And then later you say, oh, I was having a conversation with my girlfriend, and she actually said this. And I think we should implement it. Oh, Lord. Your
And
spouse
because
is
your girlfriend has now said it, you now want to do it. Oh my God.
So oftentimes, the couples now get caught up in a vicious cycle where the husband is now offended that what he originally wanted to happen is actually happening, right? It's all the emotional turmoil that we deal with in marriage. So it's not very easy to say, oh, celebrate the win. You finally got what you want, however it happened. People will still feel slighted. Like, don't you trust me? Don't Why are you not listening to me? I should be the first person you're listening to because I know you. And we tend to have this
I can never
entitlement when it
understand.
comes to
I
our
can never
spouse.
understand how spouses who are married, who claim to be in love with each other, cannot understand that the other person is only working for their best. I think that is a mentality that really helps to make marriage easier and life easier. If you will not just see, and I was speaking in church today and I said to them, if you would just understand that your spouse is not your enemy, your spouse is not your enemy, unless, of course, there's a total breakdown of the marriage and one person has checked out and people are already deceiving yourself thinking you are still married. That's a different situation. But in the normal sense of it, your spouse is not your enemy. So if they are bringing this thing and they're saying, especially if they keep saying it, oh my God, then it behoves on you to give them, for me, it's respect. And I totally agree with somebody who feels slighted when you now have to go take the advice from someone else. Anyways, it's good you've taken the advice and you've changed, but how did that person now say it that made it different? You trust them more than you trust your spouse? Is that a question? Well, in terms of one way to be able to be open to adaptability is put yourself in the other person's shoes. And I think that's spot on. Genuinely put yourself in the other person's shoes. If I am the one that is saying this thing needs to be changed and changed and changed, and my partner is not listening, or they are not making effort. I'm not talking about people who are making effort. Even in our private conversation, I always say to Emmanuel that when one spouse make effort, it's very easy to meet them halfway. But you see some people who just don't make effort. Something as simple as lifting the toilet seat up. Now let me indict men. Lift up the toilet seat before you pee. It's one simple thing that I think it's a general problem around the world. The whole world. Everywhere you go, women complain about it. And some people have been married for
Oh
years.
Lord.
Some men have been married for years. They still cannot remember that. It's very simple. Lift that toilet seat up, pee, close it down. What's that? What is hard?
Or the other option is to simply use a tissue paper to wipe off every time you pee. It's not,
Is
it
that
wouldn't seem,
economical? Is that economical? Because it
well,
means the tissue will
eco-
finish quick.
it is, well, somebody may argue it's more hygienic, right? So,
Well, okay, but whichever way, don't just leave your pee on the toilet seat knowing that you're sharing the toilet with the woman.
see, there are
That's
different
not.
options, right? There are
Of
different
course,
ways
we're not saying it
to
has to be
resolve
one
this
way,
situation.
but we're saying it has to be done.
Right.
That's the point. Is when it's not done, when the effort is not being made to do it, I believe. I mean, if you do it the other way and the goal is still achieved, I don't think any reasonable thinking partner will say, no, it must be my way. If the goal is the same, if we achieve the same thing. The other aspect I want to talk about, Jesus, 7 minutes, my time is gone. All right. Support for growth for your partner. Because sometimes it's not just about, I want you to change or I want us to change in this way. It's about, I want to grow in this way and I need to do this and that to grow. But in some relationships and in some marriages, you
Right.
don't have that. You get shut down. You can't do that.
Right.
You know, you're told not to, so you cannot grow. Let's talk about that quickly before we
Yeah.
go.
And I'm going to even just give a quick example
Mm,
to that. So, say, for example, you're always telling your wife, well, I want you to reach the best of whatever it is you're pursuing your career wise, whatever dream you have. I am 100% in support of it. I'm
mm,
standing right with you. I want you to win and all that stuff. And you show that by committing financially, for example, whatever it would take. However, you still expect your wife to fulfill all her, domestic obligations. Let me use that
mm-hmm.
word.
In
Old
quotes.
school people. For the old school people. You want her to be a first class student that requires a certain level of attention,
Mm,
time, dedication.
mm,
Even if
mm,
this goal is when she achieves it, she will now have that time available, right? So it's not as
mm,
if it's permanent in sense of she will not be able to do these things permanently. But for this dream that you are saying you verbally support to be achieved, she needs to dedicate more attention and time, meaning like in a football field, meaning even if you're the striker, you now need to drop back a bit and play like the midfielder, right? And in doing that, you're supporting the striker. The goal is we're all going to win the game. That's at the end of the day, that's the goal, right? We win. Um, I use that as an example for, and this applies to women as well. There are many women who expect their husbands to, well, you should be getting promoted, you should be doing this or doing that, or you should be growing. I'm just using work as a strict example.
mm,
However, when you look at the people that are getting promoted and you see the level of going the extra mile that they do, you are unwilling to accept that. You cannot even deal with your husband coming home late. He
late.
must do
Mm,
this, that, and that, and that.
mm,
So
mm,
you may say verbally that I support you, I want you to, but then when it comes to what it actually takes to truly support your spouse, it's a bit difficult,
mm.
because, it's difficult. Let's put it
It
that way.
requires sacrifice. Growth requires
Yes.
sacrifice. Growth requires sacrifice. Growth requires sacrifice. I can't say that enough on both
Right.
ends. So
True.
if you truly want your wife to grow, I've had people who have reached out to me. In fact, someone reached out to me on LinkedIn. I was asking me, how do you do it? You're then I was still a researcher, my PhD. You're studying, you're working, you're doing your podcasting, you're running a family. How does your husband allow you do these things? How are you able to do it? The truth is that I have a support system. I have a support system. I have a man who has said to me, I don't mind you becoming the Queen of England. I'm okay with being the Duke. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Yes, it's not all the time. But it's taking a lot of sacrifice to get there. And, kudos to my husband. Kudos to every man who is doing that. Kudos to every woman who is doing that. It goes beyond just the mouth, just saying it that, oh, I want you to reach the apex. I want you to be, whoever it is you want to be, especially within the marriage space. Don't make it, don't confine the person. Rather, support them. Make the sacrifice it will take for your partner to grow. A good relationship should allow both of you to grow professionally, emotionally, personally, and individually. Because when you grow even individually, you can bring that into the relationship and it builds the relationship. Remember that what we've talked about today is one of our last love builders. So we'll be talking about the blocks, building blocks for love. And the major one we've talked about today is growth and change. Be willing to change, be open to adapt, be willing to learn new things. And don't be the boring person. Oh, as it has been, so it has been life forevermore. No, no, no. Life is changing. Life is evolving. Learn new things. Learn them with your spouse. Learn together. This is the reason why sometimes someone like me, I see a video on social media, I share with my spouse. I'm trying to say, I think we can learn from this. You understand? We can learn from what this person has said. We can learn from what this people are doing. We are social beings. Social learning should be happening all the time. Learn good things, not only bad things. Don't only learn, copy the negative things. There are lots of positives out there. Learn them. And don't grow alone. Grow with your spouse. Carry your spouse along. Support them. Encourage them. And like Dr. Kent said, wait for them. Guide the change. Have a goal. Work with them to achieve the goal. All right, those are my last words for today. I don't know whether Emmanuel has something else to say. Our time is up. As we know, my 1 hour always runs out when we're having fun. It's been great having you again, Emmanuel, after such a long time. And, as usual, powerful insights from you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone who's commented. Thank you to those who will watch this video later. Remember that the next best thing you can do is to share this video. Share it to your friend. Tell them about our platform. Subscribe to our channel so you know when we are live. Hit the notification bell, and then you get notification once we've gone, live. Once we've gone live, you will get our notification. Tell everyone about it. Yes, we get your hugs. Thank you, Dr. Nkem. Thank you, Matron. Matron, what's her name again? Tando means love. I love that name. Thank you, everyone. I see all of you, even the ones who didn't make comments. I see all of you. I see all of you coming in. Thank you. And like I said, please keep sharing. Tell everyone about the platform. If you need counseling, we have a WhatsApp number that is attached to our Facebook page. Please connect with us. Let us know how we can help you and how we can make your relationship better. That's what we're here for. That's the goal of the platform. We just want to enjoy and not endure our relationships. Encourage one another, grow one another, support yourselves. I'll see you again next week. Thank you again, Emmanuel, for coming. God bless you all.